Welcome to the Howie and Beastmode podcast, where we discuss all things business, including growth, strategy, and execution, as well as personal and professional development. Let's join Howie and Beastmode in conversation.
Great, man. All right, brother. Well,
it was super frustrating. It was super frustrating because I really did enjoy that, and
I did too, but there's a reason.
Yeah, well, we probably need to trim about 8 minutes off of it. But
Yeah, it got long. Yeah, I mean, that's fair. It did get long.
so
That's true. Okay, well, tell me when you...
it's already ready.
Okay, good.
So,
Well, hey, Beast Mode, what's going on, man?
not a whole lot. I'm sitting out in my very real backdrop today, enjoying some vitamin D, and just ready to get going.
I love it. Well, I love the scenery, and I know you guys think that's a Zoom background, but we promise that is real. And what city? Are you in Coppell?
I'm in Coppell, Texas. Yes.
Yeah, that's neat looking too. Wow.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, it's great. The sky is really doing a number. So,
Yeah, for sure. Hey, change your name on the deal.
okay.
Although
I'll
we
do
don't
that.
mind telling you guys who we are.
I don't.
My real name is Brian Howard, by the way. You know his real name now.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, we're excited. We actually, it's funny how we had this topic is about, okay. So as you guys may or may not know, in case you just joined us, we are in the kind of an early part of a series called Investing in You. And we've done a couple so far. This is week 3. Definitely encourage you to go check out the prior weeks. This one is Investing in Learning. And we actually had a Zoom crash and we lost this whole thing. So this is our second go. We're not 100% sure what went wrong. But you know what? That's part of learning too. So I think it's interesting actually that we will learn in the experience of recording something for you guys about learning. So Beast Mode, I'm sorry for that frustration, but thanks for joining me here again.
No, yeah, it's incredible. We had a great talk. I hope we mimic a good majority of it because it was very powerful. And there was so much that I learned about it even in the moment. But I know that we have a few areas that we can fine tune, and I'm excited.
Yeah, it might end up being a little bit smoother because of that, but hopefully you guys won't think it sounds rehearsed because it's not, because all we do is operate on some notes. Anyway, so I guess no particular order. I mean, I think the first thing that we wanted to talk about as far as investing in you and this particular week's focus of investing in learning is learning yourself.
Mhm.
And, we talked about how there's a few different ways of learning about yourselves. There's some testing. So there's Strength Finders testing, there's Enneagram, there's DISC. Beast Mode and I have had experience with various ones of those. And I think we have found some value in them. I think what we did last time, which since we're going to record, I think it had some value, but maybe we'll do it a little bit quicker, is go over our strengths from Strengths Finders, just to give you guys some examples of what happens and how that works and what that looks like. So last time I went first, so I'll just go first.
Yeah.
So Strengths Finders, it's about $20, somewhere around there. And it's you can just Google it. Gallup, like the Gallup poll organization, they own them now. And so just Google Gallup Strengths Finders. And I'm going to show you guys mine. You won't be able to see the screen, but actually you might be able to. I framed mine. Maybe you can see a little bit. But my top 5, and for like around $20, you get your top 5. And then if you pay another, I don't know, I think it's like $70 or something like that, you can get all 38 of your strengths in order. I might do that eventually. I was more interested in my top 5. But I'll give you a quick description. So my first one is responsibility. And it says that people who are especially talented in their responsibility theme take psychological ownership of what they say they will do. And it goes on and on. So that's an interesting one it's my top one. So it's a very dominant thing for me. And I won't tell you all the different stories and examples of how that manifests in my life, but some of them are pretty funny, in fact. Responsibility can be kind of a curse. So I think what Beast Mode will tell you about Enneagram is that Enneagram is kind of nice to have as well. And I think they're both great together. But Enneagram is nice because it'll give you the downsides too. And Strength Finders is just the strengths. The next one is connectedness for me, which just means that I see patterns in things, which helps me a ton in sales. Positivity is just kind of like enthusiasm, and it's contagious, in theory at least. Belief, that I know that sounds like religious belief, and it certainly can be that. And I would say I'm very motivated by my faith, but for me, belief manifests in, I really tend to, if I believe in something, I can really sell it, because I really want to help you. And it's coming from a place of conviction that if you have this, it's going to help you. You know what I mean? So that's belief. And then my fifth one, and I'll flip it to beast mode, but is discipline. And all discipline sounds like a very regimented, German kind of thing. It's not, even though I have some German in me. But discipline is actually people who like routine and structure. And it says their world is best described by the order they create. So I tend to be somebody who documents. I tend to be somebody who likes to, take something that works and then sort of like create a process around that, right? And I've got plenty of faults, with those, but those happen to be my strengths. And so I thought I'd flip it to Beast Mode to share his, to give you guys a little bit more of examples of why this could be good to help you learning yourself.
Yeah, and so my five from Strength Finder is, number one is learner, which is a big reason why we're even doing this topic, is because learner is very important to me. Just to kind of give you a little bit of backstory, I only started really investing in myself, learning about myself, about 2 years ago. I wish I would have done it, 25 years ago. It's so important, and I would highly recommend you guys do something, start somewhere. I actually think Strength Finder is a good place to start, even though it does have a fee. Enneagram is free. Number two for me is achiever. It's exactly what it sounds like. I love achieving things, goals along the way, but it doesn't necessarily have to be strictly achieving a goal. It could be in the process of achieving a goal. Number three is input. I love input, positive, negative, doesn't matter. I want you to walk me through the process. And again, it kind of ties into learning. I want to know why you feel away, but more importantly, I'm going to ask the question about why. Unpack this for me. Tell me more about it. Again, just probably most likely to satisfy number one. Number four is intellectual. And so when you partner learning with input with intellectual, I want to know anything that I perceive that's going to make me smarter, that's going to make me more knowledgeable. Again, on our earlier podcast, I gave an example that that in itself is not positive all the time. It seems positive, but what I can do if I'm not aware is I may zone out because I feel like what you're telling me isn't making me more knowledgeable, or is not making more intellectual. And so I will shut down the receiving of that input, which is not great, but it does happen. And so I just got to catch myself. The number five, again, is belief. And my perspective on belief is the purpose behind it. So again, it can be a faith purpose. It can be, I feel strongly that this is going to help you, and I want to convey that belief. And so these characteristics, when you look at them, you can see how it can make you more well-rounded. It can take your personality and put them all together to make, not that you're not a whole person, because you are, but it just helps you understand the nooks and crannies of who you are in business and relationships outside of it. So
that's good. Yeah, and one of the things that we didn't talk about in our failed recording, but that kind of speaks to me now, is that for me in Beast Mode to understand each other's strengths, I should probably have a copy. Actually, I think you texted me that. So I'll keep a copy of those and I'll read about those a little bit more so that I can relate to you better. And that's one of the benefits that I really do think that, and I know we're talking about investing in learning and investing in you, but it is really interesting when you have other people's information so you can relate to them more. In a podcast not long ago, I shared how I brought in StrengthsFinders into actually I didn't bring it in. I just rolled it out more fully in my last company. And we actually did have these frames on everybody's desks, which was a small little simple investment that we made, so that when I walk up to their desk, I can relate to them via their strengths. And I can tell you that they appreciated that for sure, in the way that I would, kind of like celebrate them, win beneath their wings and all that. So anyway, learning in yourself. We talked also in our blow up one about learning some of your weaknesses. And I really liked how we got into atomic habits. So I'm going to tee Beastmode up and give a couple thoughts, but you'll probably have the bulk of this point. So there's a TED talk that I saw on how to accomplish anything or something like that. And it was about how this guy taught himself German, and he, I think he did a bunch of fitness goals, and, all kinds of stuff. And it was pretty interesting. It inspired me because he talked about how he would just invest in, like a 5-minute thing or a small little incremental deal. And, one of the things that I'm trying to work on right now in real time, and I actually documented this as a goal today, is that I want to be able to get up earlier because I tend to be a night owl, and I am good at night. I'm actually I don't know, people have different times of day. Sometimes they're stronger. I'm a little bit stronger at night sometimes. But still, it's not convenient to get up later for living. So I want to kind of try to strike a balance and get up earlier. So I've kind of set an atomic habit for myself of, getting up maybe 5 minutes earlier every day until I get to my goal. And today actually was a good success with that. So today was a good start. But yeah, Beast Mode, you've actually read the book Atomic Habits. So talk to us just a little bit about your perspective on that and how we can, kind of like learn ourselves and maybe improve some of those areas through those small habits.
Yeah. So Atomic Habits breaks down, and basically the gist is that we all have big goals, but to accomplish big goals, you can break a big goal into a little habit that you do over time to accomplish a big task. I actually heard about it, and quite frankly, Craig Rochelle, who I heard about it from on his leadership podcast, uses it and quotes this every year when he's talking about New Year's habits, New Year's resolutions. And he's talking about most people want to go from a black to a white perspective jump, or they want to go from, I'm 200 pounds, I want to go to 140 pounds. Why don't you set a goal of this year, I want to get at and maintain 190 pounds. And the next year I want to get at and maintain 180 pounds. Not quite, is it more attainable? Of course, and it's longer lasting. But at the end of the day, you're going to set a precedence and a goal that you're going to get to eventually, but now you're going to maintain it for the rest of your life. And that's what he's talking about. Is a lot of us say, I want to be like this person. Well, that person didn't make one goal, didn't make one perspective shift. No, they compounded several habits over the course of 20, 25 years, and now they are that person. And that's what we're recommending to you, is learn about yourself. What are some positivities that I can build upon? What are some negatives that I can begin eliminating, and compound those over time? And now here you are after whatever time frame, 6 months, 2 years, 10 years, and now you're a tremendously different person.
So good. So good. Yeah. I mean, if you compound, and actually another guy you guys can check out about this, although I can't point to the podcast that this would sit on, but he covers it more than once. But Jordan B. Peterson, if you're into self-help and improvement and personal evolution and all that kind of stuff, I would say he's more into evolution than revolution, which is exactly what Beast Mode is recommending here with those incremental small changes. So Jordan B. Peterson is good to check out for some of you guys as well. And earlier, didn't you mention that Craig Rochelle has a leadership podcast too, by the way?
Yep, that's exactly what it's called. Craig Rochelle's Leadership Podcast.
Oh, it's literally that's the name. Okay, good. Yeah, yeah. I may want to add that. I have a lot of them in my queue, but we'll see if I can add that. Another guy you guys might like is Jocko Willem, and he was a Navy SEAL leader back in the day, and now has a podcast and does leadership stuff too. So he's really good for you guys as well. But anyway, yeah. So I think the next point we wanted to talk about is education. So this is a little bit more, what I was about to say is this is more formal education, but I think we should also talk about informal education, because you don't have to have an actual degree necessarily. But I'll start us off on this one too. So obviously, the problem is, guys, if you don't have a high school education, especially, it's a real limiter to the types of jobs that you can get, number one. And number two, if you don't go through the curriculum of high school, you probably won't have the tools. It's not that you're not good enough and that you're not smart enough, but you may not have been exposed to the training and the tools and the discipline and the knowledge to be able to write properly and do some decent math. and to present and speak and argue and think and read properly. You know what I mean? So definitely make yourself, even if you have missed the boat, go attack your GED. There's, I'm sure there's online ways of doing that where you can still work and all that, as the case may be. If you're in high school, guys, stay in high school. Do not drop out. Do not be a statistic, please. And then moving on to college, yeah, if you can get into Harvard, great, or whatever it may be. But, I would just say that it's good for you to differentiate yourself above the crowd by having a degree if you of some kind. So if you have to start off at community college, it could be very affordable. And there's government grants and loans available and things of that nature. I don't recommend getting into a lot of debt though. So it'd be better if you can't afford it to go for a less expensive school. Do yourself a favor and don't saddle yourself with debt. But I would say from an educational standpoint that again, you're, by going to that secondary education into the college realm, getting a 4-year degree will give you more presenting experience, more speaking, writing, thinking, arguing experience, research experience, some more math, and again, some of the more surrounding cultural history, literature kind of things that happen to be part of that. So I do recommend that. I think be thoughtful about your degree plan because people who hire don't have a lot of creativity. So if you have, for example, if you want to be a nurse and if you don't have a professional degree in nursing, then that's going to be harder. You have to start off much lower on the totem pole and kind of work your way up through skilled nursing ranks, as well as if you're going to be in sales or in business, and it kind of makes sense, or marketing, it kind of makes sense to have a degree that people would associate with us. So be thoughtful about that. But it's good to push yourself in that way. I'll flip it to beast mode. The only thing I would also say is that there are a lot of trade schools that are very valuable. People can make $100,000 or more as a plumber or an electrician. So don't forget, or HVAC tech. So don't forget that, yeah, those jobs can be hotter. Those are high skilled jobs that are very important, that they will always be around. So don't forget those. And then also public cloud like Amazon Web Services or Microsoft Azure for cloud, and also coding. So there's code schools all over the place. They're only a few $1,000s, I believe. It's been a few years since I've looked at them. And they're literally classroom experiences. They're not just online. There are code schools, and you can have a great job coding, if that sounds interesting to you. So I'll flip it to you, Beast Mode, for your thoughts on education.
Yeah, education is definitely important. Again, I brought up a little bit more cultural context earlier, that some cultures, it's more important as a societal thing as opposed to what we're talking about, which is just the overall educational experience. But either way, there's something that's there to be learned, and a lot of it isn't necessarily the classroom education portion. It's the context in which you're learning. It's the group atmospheres. It's the public speaking. It's working together. Those types of things that, again, whether you're at Harvard MBA or you're at, here locally, Dallas County Community College, I think either way, there's the ability to learn. There's an ability to group learn, because most jobs that you're going to go to, even if your individual work is solo, there is some capacity where you're going to have to team play. And there's just that aspect of, I need to be able to communicate my thought effectively to you, which a lot of times, unfortunately, especially in the United States, we miss out on and we're not very good at.
Yep. So true. Yeah. Don't fail to get an education because of lack of effort or lack of funding, because you can tackle those things. It's all, if something requires effort and dedication and focus, it's probably good for you, just like working out, right? What about reading? I know I'm going to let you start off with this one. Reading is an area that you're stronger on than I am, and I'd love to hear your thoughts, and then I'll spit a few thoughts too.
Yeah, I thoroughly enjoy reading. I've enjoyed reading for quite a while. I would say back until middle school, when I really kind of got the bug with a book called The Hatchet. And I can still remember it just because I remember reading it and thinking, this is not assigned to me. I really enjoy it and I want to read it again. But I don't want to read the stuff that's assigned to me. I didn't enjoy it. It was always a pain. And I just found that as I've gotten older, that I wish there was more hours in the day, not because I could get things done, because I enjoy reading so much. Again, it goes back to my learning and the input. And I consistently have conversations like, I wish I could wake up earlier so I could read, or I wish I could somehow get work done sooner so that I could read. But the reading aspect is just the acquiring of knowledge. And it's not always business-based. It's not always faith-based. It's just the ability to read, to pull that information in. Audiobooks are a great way to get multiple things done, as Howie's going to tell you a little bit more about. It's not his favorite, and it's nor is it mine either, because I enjoy grabbing a paragraph or something and being able to come back and point at it literally later. But find an avenue, whether it's a magazine, whether it's an audiobook, whether it's a devotional that is sent to you, something that makes it easier for you to get started. Again, start with a paragraph. Don't go grab the Bible if that's not something that is attainable. Start with something that you can do that day, 5 minutes, and then let it pour into you for a week, see the results.
So good. Yeah, so Beastmode is right. So in terms of my personal time, it's always a challenge to find time to reading. I'm trying to start, I've recently, the last few weeks, I've started to work on that though. And I downloaded a book by the Strength Finders people called It's the Manager. And it's basically a study of thousands of data points from all their testing. And apparently it's, the manager is like the biggest thing about organizational success is management, which is kind of an appealing. Management in general is a real topic for me that I do like. So I'm kind of enjoying it so far. But, one thing I do read every day is the Bible. I recommend it. If you're not religious, there's a ton of information in there that you'll still get out of it as well. If you've never read the book of Proverbs, it's about 60 to 70% business, to be honest with you. And if you don't have that edge, then you're missing out, because a lot of people read it for that. So that's a good place to go. And then in terms of you're right, the Audible, and I know there's more than just Amazon's Audible brand, but the one I happen to use is the Audible brand. And, I have participated in reading for several years via that avenue, because I can listen to an Audible book while I'm driving, or when I'm cooking, or when I'm cleaning. And so it's a really great opportunity. I've read a lot of different books that way. So yeah, that's just, my perspective on reading. Another form of reading though, if you're going to talk about Audible books, it's what Beastmode and I talked about a minute ago, which is podcasts. Most of you are on podcasts. That's why you're listening to us. But that's another great avenue as well. Whether it be, there's history podcasts now, by the way, guys. There's one called The Cold War, What We Saw. It's life-changing. I mean, it's unbelievable, like what you didn't know about, kind of like the 50s through the 80s, maybe even into the early 90s, whenever the Berlin Wall fell. I can't remember the exact date. Might have been late 80s. But just a truly incredible what was going on at the time. And there's just opportunities like that in podcasts, which are basically a modern form of free, audiobooks. So check those out for sure. And it'll be another way to keep sharp and grow. What about listening? One of the things that I really like about your LinkedIn profile, Beastmode. By the way, if you want to see his profile, it's Jordan Allsup. So just search him up on LinkedIn and you'll see what I'm saying. He's got a good profile. But when you talked about active listening in your tagline in LinkedIn. So spit a little bit to us about what you mean by that.
Yeah, listening is very important. I think we all know the old analogy, you got 2 ears, so you should be doing twice listening as talking. But there is a difference between listening, hearing versus active listening. This is, again, it's a practice that you should start small. Start with someone that you're committed to, whether it's a parent, whether it's a spouse, whether it's a relationship that matters to you, and practice actively listening to that individual. It's easy to assume active listening is putting away your phone, which it is, but active listening is also shutting down the portion of, and especially me, my brain, that begins to tell me this conversation doesn't matter. And I have to refocus and actively say, stay engaged. this does matter. And quite frankly, it matters to the person who's telling me.
That's good.
They have value in what they're saying, and that's why they're telling me. So I need to pay attention, and I need to actively, Brian's going to come back and get this in a second. I need to actively reiterate what they're saying, because number one, it shows understanding. Number two, it shows I was listening. It shows value. I cared about what you had to say, so I listened intently, and now I'm actively showing you comprehension. If you're in sales, if you're in business, this is one of these things that if you can master, you will set yourself apart tremendously.
Yeah, Beast Mode is better at this than I am. And, you know, it's an area I want to work on. I'm glad he's in my life so that, you know, he's kind of a nice reminder of this topic, because I have a natural compassion for people, just kind of who I am, not because I'm great, just because I was born with it or something. I don't know. And so it would kill me to think that I wasn't listening to someone. That would really bother me. And so, you know, having Beast Mode emphasize, remember the topic is investing in you, learning. Today it's about learning. And so how can I learn more? And I think by listening to others is a great way to learn and to invest in myself and listening to others. But yeah, he did kind of reference something that I do. And it's not because I'm a great guy. It's because of a weakness that I have, actually. I have some ADD and some other stuff that goes on. And so when I'm talking to you, you'll find that to help me encode the information, sometimes I'll repeat stuff back to you. It's not every conversation, but it's a way for me to actively learn and actively listen, you know, not to steal his terminology of it. But yeah, I do repeat it back to you. So for example, gosh, I'm trying to give you a good example. I had one earlier actually, but anyway, you'll be telling me something, or my team member will be telling me something, and I will repeat, you know, essentially I'll kind of boil it down what they told me and repeat it back to them. And the outcome of that is nice, is that yes, I do learn. So I'm investing in learning. I'm investing in me for sure, but also they do feel cared about. And that it hits a core value for me 100%, that I do want them to feel cared about, because I do care about it. So yeah, anyway, active listening is something that Beast Mode kind of does real intentionally. And so I want to do better about that. But the one trick I have that I can pass along is just the repeating stuff back to people.
Yeah,
which makes them feel heard.
It's called mirroring in the active listening world, if you want to call it that. And another thing that it does that I don't think either one of us said is it actually continues the conversation. And so,
okay.
And so if you're in the middle of a conversation and you're actively listening, when somebody begins to wrap up their portion, but I'm not done, maybe I need more information, instead of pausing their thought, you want them to continue, you mirror back the last 3, 6, 7 words back to them, and you pause, and it allows them to pick up where they left off. They can just continue the thought. I'm showing I'm listening, I'm showing comprehension, but I need more information. Instead of asking you, hey, can you unpack that? You know, I can just take your last 3 to 5 words, and then you will naturally do it on your own. You'll finish my sentence because you were the thought originator. If you do that in sales, it's, again, we're talking about investing in you. You're going to see a dramatic increase in your sales, in your team engagement, all these things, if you just begin mirroring back your team.
Good. Love it. Yeah, there's a statistic, and it's probably, you know how statistics are. Someone probably made this up. I have no idea, but take it for what it's worth. Someone said that, you know, people are 70% more likely to buy from you if they feel understood, if they feel heard. And I don't know if that's true as far as the number, but I know the concept of it is for sure true. So good. So listening is good. And then experiencing, there's, you know, like anything, there's a downside, there's an upside and a downside. When I was 15 and I was influenced by people in their 20s who were, you know, doing drugs, I was told, you know, how do you know it's wrong if you don't experience it? And because of peer pressure and I wanted to please them, and because I didn't have a good argument for that, I did fall for that, and I did experiment. and the grace of God, and then I experienced, by the way, as they do say, and then I did experience with harder stuff and harder stuff. And so I've done those things. And just the grace of God, I had, Nancy Reagan in the 80s with her whole egg in a frying pan. This is your brain on drugs. I had that, and I was like, okay. And the drugs were so strong. I was like, I can see why people get addicted to this. And I had those ads in my head for just saying no to drugs. And so I was able to just not build a habit because I didn't basically let it. But yeah, so experiencing can be bad if, what I think Beast Mode you talk about is experiencing with a purpose.
Yes. I guess we could rephrase it because I don't want to go off on a tangent. Experiences without purposes is not something I would recommend. If you're going to have an experience like an internship, like going to a certain school, like being on a sports team, and I referenced this earlier, like experiencing what's going through across our nation in the U.S., Black Lives Matter, that is something I need to experience. I need to grasp and understand. It's going to make me more effective communicator when I understand that. So yes, I should, but no, I shouldn't do what I did for a decade and experiment with more and more alcohol, and neither should have you gone down the path that you went down. So I just want to make sure that we nail that down, that experiences, I don't think either one of us are condoning experimenting just to experience something, but if we can focus and say, you know what, maybe I should go on a mission trip because I need to experience this. Maybe I need to go serve in this community to get a better feel if it's something that I want to do long term. Of course.
Well, I agree with you. So Beast Mode, some of you guys know that Beast Mode started a nonprofit called Cleanup, and there's some short-term things that are already happening, and we're just weeks into this thing. And then there's some long-term goals as well with that and long-term vision. But I'm going to go Saturday night with them and hang out and go feed the homeless and, try to love on some people through that experience. So it's definitely will open up my eyes and expand my vision for the community and for life, through that experience. So I think, that's a great example of being intentional. And, sometimes I feel like, for example, when some of you guys know that I was let go on May 28th, and I've been in the job search, and it was a really painful layoff situation for me, not just financially, but, just feeling like I had invested in the way things went down were tough to it's just hard to process that. And so this is a funny thing to say, but I wanted a road trip and I wanted to see some desert and some mountains to just help Howie get back, kind of get healthy. And so I told my wife, I said, you're going to wake up one day and I'm not going to be here. Just call me because I'm going to be on the road. But then she was kind enough to say, you know what, I will join you in that journey. And so I drove from Texas to New Mexico, southern New Mexico, 10-hour drive, and had a great time. But she went with me, and I found out later that it was a total sacrifice for her. That's not an experience that she wanted to have, but her experience, actually, she will now tell you that it was one of the best trips of her life. Just seeing desert and mountains like that and hanging out with me was a great experience. And so what would have happened if that positive experience, again, we're not talking about drugs here. We're talking about driving to New Mexico, right? There's not a lot of bad that can come from that, other than, being tired, or hopefully you don't get a fender bender. But you know what I mean? So having that openness, sometimes to go through these experiences of learning, you're going to have to kind of be a little bit open-minded and have a little bit of, whether it's courage or maybe a little bit of an investment. My youngest daughter was adopted from China. One of our goals eventually is to let her go work in the orphanage for maybe a few days, just to experience that and kind of give back and hold some babies. And I want to go too. I mean, of course I would go, and we would all go, but that's a great experience, but that's expensive. And that's like, as far as the time of our political situation, I would probably want it to be a little more friendly with China right now than it is. As well as, right now we're in the pandemic. So there's some conditions. So it's not like you don't plan, you can be safe about it. But having some of those experiences, that'll change your life. I mean, so Beastmode mentioned a mission trip. I went on a mission trip to Nicaragua and absolutely changed my life. I mean, too long of a story. So yeah, I agree with you. So there's just, it doesn't have to be a physical thing like that. It could just be volunteering. It could be, I don't know. I mean, what about something as simple, we talked about ministry a little bit. There's a lot of forms of ministry. What about, during Christmas, if you can, adopt some families and bring them some gifts or something, you know what I mean? So having those experiences are a great way also of investing in yourself and of learning. And if you do have kids and they can see kind of some of that stuff happen, I mean, you're definitely investing in your family and in your future as well. But any more thoughts on experiencing with a purpose?
Yeah, I guess while you were talking, I was thinking, and just using your analogy, but if you would have told your wife, hey, I'm going to the mountains, I have no purpose in why I'm going, I just want to get away from everything and everyone, I think your wife would have said, no, you're not, But then what for her, maybe she didn't tell you till later. I mean, you told her, I need to get away. I want to focus on this. God got to tell me something and I'm going to get it. So you had a purpose to go. But your wife went because maybe she didn't have the same purpose, but she probably thought on the inside, I'm going because there's an experience he's going to have and I want to be a part of it. Yeah. And that's valuable. If she would have gone just to say, I don't want you to go alone and that's the only reason I'm going, then I think there would have been the rift. But that you both had purposes, you both got different value, and at the same time you were on the same experience.
That's good. And actually I'm really glad you brought that up, because I think there is something to be said in some of these experiences of not going alone, and not just from a safety standpoint. Like if you said, hey, like I tell you, one of the things that I bat around occasionally is kayaking from Dallas to Houston via the Trinity River. And apparently it's a multi-day, and I don't even know, I haven't even read any blogs about this, but I've heard it's days and days to kayak camp down there. But I think you should be cognizant of the fact that someone else might want to join you in that journey, whatever your adventure or journey is. And those things do enrich our lives, whether it be, imagine you're talking to a customer or you're talking to a partner or you're ministering to someone or whatever your situation is, you're able to pull from these stories and say, have interesting things to share. I mean, I feel like it just enriches a lot of things to have those really good experiences. And honestly, some of the experiences can be failures. And that's why I think you do have to bet on yourself a little bit. I wrote a LinkedIn post recently about, I feel like a lot of us don't take enough risks in our careers and in our businesses. And I said something like, what are we even doing here? Like, why not? Like, what else are you going to do with your life? Like, take some risk. And so I think, you want to plan for safety, but I mean, I've had a startup that cost me $125,000. And depending on how you want to look at it, between 3 and 7 years of work, and it failed. But man, I have a deep experience from that it's actually helped me across business and has helped other people across business as well. So anyway, yeah, I think a little bit of boldness, a little bit of courage, a little bit of creativity, and having some plans and some purpose is a whole lot smarter and better for us as far as our learning and our development than just, staying on the couch.
True.
So that's my thought. So we covered learning yourself with testing, and working on the areas of when we have learned ourselves, some of the weaknesses, working on using the atomic habit type idea. And Beastmode's read it and I haven't, but the concept is micro changes over time. And then we talked about education, which is more of the formal side of learning. And then we talked a lot about reading, we talked about listening, and Beastmode's patented active listening, and then experiencing with purpose. All this is to invest in ourselves, and it makes us stronger and better. So what else do you have for the guys?
Just don't stop learning. Take the opportunity to learn something. And again, it can be related to work, it can be related to family. Any type of learning is wonderful. And if you're at this point in our conversation, you're already doing that. So I want to commend you and tell you to keep going. And again, if there's feedback on this topic or something that spoke to you, we're definitely available to have conversations outside of this. And you can find this podcast on YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, and Google Podcasts.
Well, enjoyed hanging out with you, and we'll see you next time.
All right, maybe I'll be right here again in my definitely real backdrop. So good to see you.
You're gonna have to come up with a continual new set of backgrounds now. That's an impressive one.
I don't know, or maybe you just might have to come join me right here.
We'll just do a round table in the park. I like it.
I think that'll be great. All right, man. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
No, bye.